Now first, Dorothy. Dorothy represents the people, the regular people, and their good spirit and how they're generally nice people and just want to live their life and just want the finer things in life. Now the ruby slippers represent the power that the people have, but they don't know how to use. Remember when she get the ruby slippers on her feet, the evil wicked witch says that she doesn't know how to use the power. She doesn't even know about the power. Now, the Wicked Witch of the East, the one who died, represents the dead corporations from the East, all the dead companies that went under after the Great Depression. And the Wicked Witch of the West represents London or the UK. Now, if you split the earth right down the middle, you have the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere, then basically London and the UK just makes it into the Western Hemisphere. So the Wicked Witch, the Good Witch, she represents basically the Senate and the power that the Senate has but won't use. Now when you think about it, remember she tells the Wicked Witch of the West she has no power here. So she has the power to basically get rid of the Wicked Witch, but she doesn't. She also doesn't just come out and tell Dorothy how to use the slippers. Remember at the end, the witch just says, hey, click your heels together 3 times, say it's no place like home. So basically all this time you could have told me how to get home. How come you didn't? We're gonna get to that part. Now, she basically represents the Senate, who has the power, who can basically fix everything, but won't. Now, you have the yellow brick road. The yellow brick road, what does it look like to you? It looks like bars of gold, golden bars, look at it. Bars of gold that lead to where? To the Emerald City. And the color of emerald is green. The color of money is green. And who makes the money? The Federal Reserve Bank. So it represents the gold that disappeared into the Federal Reserve Bank. And the Emerald City basically represents the Federal Reserve. Now Toto. Toto means everything. Remember the witch says, I'll get you and your little dog too, meaning I'll get you and everything. And remember, the Wicked Witch of the West basically wants to take away the power from the people, and the power is the ruby slippers. Now in the book, the original book, the ruby slippers are not ruby, they are silver. And that's just something you need to know. Now, they keep going and they run into the Scarecrow. Now, that's an easy one. The Scarecrow is the straw man, represents you as well. The straw man, and the straw man needs a brain. Basically saying if he had a brain, he would figure this whole thing out. Now, we get to the Tin Man. The Tin Man, T-I-N, tax identification number. The Tin Man represents you as well. It basically represents the hard-working man who works so hard till he's old and rusted and he can't do anything. And if he had any heart, he would figure this thing out or have the courage to figure this thing out as well. Cowardly Lion. Now, the Cowardly Lion basically represents the Senate and the courts. Basically, all the freaking councilmen and all the people who also have the power to fix things but just won't do it. Now, if you look at all these old court buildings and old council buildings, you always see a lion outside. You always see like a stone lion statue or something outside of these courts and councilman buildings. Now, if you think about it, the Cowardly Lion basically had the power to defeat those monkeys, but it was too busy being a coward. Now, the monkeys, by the way, represents the Senate as well. Now, represents politicians. Now, if you go back to the 30s to a lot of the comics they used to draw in the newspaper, they always represented the politicians as flying monkeys. So that's what that is, flying monkeys. Now, okay, so they keep going. They finally get to Oz, and they get to see the wizard. Now, the wizard, who is basically the head of the Federal Reserve Bank, is basically tricking everybody and tricking everybody into believing that he's this great and powerful Oz. Now, think about Oz, O-Z, ounces. What do we measure gold in? Ounces, O-Z. That's why it's called the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the powerful, great and powerful Wizard of Gold, Oz. Now, the wizard is tricking everybody into believing that he's this great and powerful man. Now, basically trying to show you in the movie, if you pay attention to everything, you can figure this out. Now, who is everything? I just told you, Toto. Now, when they finally paid attention to everything, or Toto, they seen that Toto was pulling back the curtain and revealing the secret that this is some bullshit, because they paid attention to everything, or Toto, they found out the truth. Now, once they found out the truth, the great and powerful wizard starts to bitch up. He starts to be nice to them. Now, pay attention to what he gives the Scarecrow. Now, he's talking to him, and he gives the Scarecrow a certificate. representing the birth certificate. He gives the birth certificate to the straw man, you. Now, listen to what he says about where that certificate comes from. He says it comes from e pluribus unum, which is all over the money.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Universitatis Comitiatum e pluribus unum, e pluribus unum, e pluribus unum, I hereby confer upon you the honorary degree of THD.
Now, if you pay attention to the Federal Reserve Bank, if you look at the money, you always find e pluribus unum. It's everywhere. And what it really means is one from many. Now, he gives the tin man, or the tax identification number, he gives him a heart. But the heart is attached to some kind of rope. And it's a clock. It's a ticking clock. Now, that basically means your time is almost up. Now, to me, that has a deeper meaning. It means a lot. It means like what I was saying before about how you work so hard and you basically go through life. You spend most of your life, most of your time in your life going to school and working for what? To pay some money to survive. And that's not what life's about. And you basically have a clock, and you're going to look up and see that you spent most of your time doing something that you really didn't want to do, and now you only got a little bit of time left to survive, to live. So that's what that means to me. Now, you get basically to the end, and now when you pay attention, they don't never punish the wizard for tricking everybody. They basically let him go. They let him get into a balloon and go. He caused inflation, and he left on inflation. So I mean, it was no punishment. And it goes back to what the guy was saying. We have in our arsenal plausible deniability, meaning that even if y'all figure this whole thing out, guess what? We still gonna get away. We just gonna say, well, we ain't know. I mean, but if you know what I know, you pay attention to what I've been showing you, you know they know. Now, finally, the Senate, or the good witch, says, tap your heels together 3 times and you get to go home. Basically saying what I was saying before. She had the power the whole time to help her out, but she was scared to do it, and she didn't want to do it because, you know, the great and powerful wizard was running everything, and now that he's beaten, now finally she want to help her out. And, you know, she finally goes home, and basically the whole thing is a dream. She wakes up. Now, to me, that's like them basically saying that if you think you really gonna figure this whole thing out, you think you really gonna be able to do this stuff, then you dreaming. You know, the whole thing is a dream, but it's a deep message. And to me, it's also saying, wake up. It's saying, wake up and realize what's going on. Wake up and understand that you have been tricked and these people are deceiving you. Now, I want to explain the whole banker bailout thing and what that whole thing was about in 2008. Now, a lot of people know that the banks were bailed out and the stock market just about crashed, and we went into a kind of mini depression. Now, a lot of people don't understand what that was all about. Now, what happened was these international bankers, they got their media, which most of them own. They own the media, they own the news companies, but I'm going to explain that to you later. What they did was they got the media to report that people should invest in the economy. They should invest in real estate and invest in mortgages and invest in these things called derivatives. So all the major banks, all the big companies start investing in mortgages, start buying up mortgages, start buying up real estate, start buying up these derivatives. So when a smaller bank seen that the big banks was doing this, they did the same thing. They started investing in these things. Companies started investing in these things. And they wanted it to get big and big and big. That's exactly what the scam was about. It was about getting as much companies to invest into this whole thing and get all the companies they didn't own into this whole thing. So once they got enough companies in it, they pulled the rug from under them. So what they did was they got the media to start reporting that these derivatives was corrosive. And the market is not doing as well, and these mortgages are not doing as well as we thought they was. And people can't afford these mortgages, so the stocks went down, of course. Now, these companies who they was trying to buy up did not want to sell, so they had to create a reason for them to need to sell. Now, the bankers who was behind all this thing, who own these major banks, they got those banks to come out and say, well, listen, we're in trouble. They got them to play victim. So they was like, hey, we're in trouble and we need to be bailed out. Because if we go under, then all these other companies who get money from us are going to go under. All these small companies are going to go under, and millions of people are going to lose their jobs. So, of course, this pissed Congress off.
Secretary Paulson came in with the vice president and Fed Chairman Bernanke and made all these assurances that there was absolutely a critical, immediate need to get rid of the corrosive derivative products, all the different names for this, ubiquitous, sub-S retraded credit default swap, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but they talked about them as though they knew what the hell they were. You got the money and you immediately said, what items, what auction?
Now the Treasury just basically cut that out of the bill. And what we have here is a situation where banks are hoarding the money that they're getting from the TARP. They're using the money to purchase other banks. And all of a sudden, the Treasury sent a signal to the banks, forget about it. We're going to give you the money that you want, and you do what you want with it. Unless you direct it specifically, it's not going to happen. I don't think anyone questions, Mr. Kashkari, that you're working hard. Our question is who you're working for.
And of course, Congress could see that this whole thing was a big scam. And a lot of people in Congress wanted to let the banks fail. They was like, okay, well, so what? They was going to let the banks go under. Now, for you people who don't believe that the stock market is controlled, then go buy some Apple stock. Go buy some shares in Apple. And then if the CEO comes on TV and say, hey, Apple not doing so good, watch how fast you lose your money. Now that's exactly what happened. They came on TV and they got the media to report that the Congress wasn't giving up that money fast enough. And soon as they reported that, stock started to fall. The Dow plunged over 700 points. And those companies who needed these banks to stay open, their stock dropped as well. It was just like with Nicholas Biddle, when he threatened that he would cause a depression if the bank's charter wasn't renewed. Here they was trying to cause a depression with this whole stock market thing crashing. Now, they was trying to do worse than that.
The only way they can pass this bill is by creating and sustaining a panic atmosphere. That atmosphere is not justified. Many of us were told in private conversations that if we voted against this bill on Monday, that the sky would fall, the market would drop 2,000 or 3,000 points the first day, another couple thousand the second day, and a few members were even told that there would be martial law in America if we voted no. That's what I call fear-mongering. Unjustified.
And of course we know the banks got bailed out. Now the bank bailout bill only included major banks. It didn't include the smaller banks and mortgage companies. Now that was the whole point. The whole point was to scam them out of their companies, to buy up these smaller banks and mortgage companies so they can own as much property as possible. Now you got to think about how many homes out there. It's millions of houses out there that are bought and paid for. I mean, people own these houses. They don't have to pay no mortgage. They're just sitting there. The property is owned. And you got old people still living in these houses, or they pass those houses down to kids or whatever like that. Now, this whole thing goes back to the 90s when they started the whole home equity loan thing. The whole home equity loan thing was to get those houses, was to get those struggling old people or those struggling people who own these properties to take money off of their house. So they would say like, hey, your house is worth $100,000. You need some money. We'll give you $80,000, on your house, and you take out another mortgage and you just pay the money down until you pay it off, and with interest, of course. Now, mort means death. Engage mean a value object as a guarantee of good faith. So mortgage means death as a value object as a guarantee of good faith. Because when you sign that mortgage form, there's a clause in there that says, we can take out a life insurance policy on you just in case you die before you pay that money off. Now, if you leave your house to somebody when you die, then they're going to collect that insurance money, and that person's still going to have to pay what you didn't pay. It's a double dip. Now, since these small banks and mortgage companies didn't get bailed out, they had to call in a lot of loans to small companies, small businesses, and mortgages. So a lot of companies went out of business. A lot of people lost their homes. And for the first time in 2008, white people got to feel like black people feel all the time. They got to feel like the government is fucking them over. Now, the whole thing with the bank bailout bill was when they got that money, The big banks were supposed to loan money to the smaller banks so they could stay afloat. In exchange for that, those smaller banks would not force these small companies and these people who had these mortgages to raise their interest rates or raise their rents or whatever like that. So it went from like people were paying $2,000 a month for a mortgage to $5,000 a month. So of course they couldn't afford it anymore, and they couldn't pay the banks back their money. So the banks couldn't pay the bigger banks. So the bigger banks said, okay, well, we're just gonna buy you out. And that's exactly what they did. Once again, the bad guy wins. So we know the banks bought up these smaller mortgage companies and these smaller banks. And instead of really helping the economy, they gave their CEOs $1 million bonuses and raises. And now today, the economy is messed up. The economy is not doing well. They keep reporting that it's doing well, but it's not doing well at all. Pay attention to the numbers. So how can we fix this whole thing? And believe it or not, it's very easy, very simple to do. And a bunch of people has brought this up to Congress, but Congress don't seem to listen to it. Now, it's called a financial transaction tax. If we impose a financial transaction tax on Wall Street, it could raise billions of dollars. Now we're talking about 3 cents of every $100. It could raise billions of dollars. Also, banks contribute less than 2% of total tax revenue. Less than 2% of total tax revenue. Think about that. That's crazy. If they just contribute 4%, it would create billions of dollars. But instead of doing that, they choose to cut Social Security, cut Medicare, and cut welfare, cut school budgets, cut all these budgets, all these things that's going to help the community and help the people. There's supposed to be a government for the people, by the people. And as soon as people start realizing that they're scamming you, things will change. Now, if I'm a crook and I work for a person that has infinite money, as long as they're going to let me keep scamming them, I'm a scammer. And I'm going to get money from my friends and bring them in so they can scam. And then when they grow up and have kids, guess what? We're going to bring them in so they can scam. And that's what's been going on for years, hundreds of years. But the people don't want to wake up. And when information like this, like a guy like me who's not a famous celebrity, comes out and try to wake people up and talk to people, nobody wants to listen. Nobody want to listen to me. I'm not Jay-Z, I'm not Tyrese. So what I have to say is not really important when this information is affecting you every single day, and you may not think you see it, but you feel it every day. So the whole banker bailout thing, people really know what happened there. They know it was a scam. But the media is not trying to say, hey, American people, they scammed you. Look, here's the information, here's the proof. How come the media is not doing that when the information is right there? The same thing with this whole Wall Street financial transaction tax. How come the media is not saying, hey, American people, look, this is how we can fix everything. This right here can fix the whole country, and we'll still have money left over to help Africa and all these other countries. Look, check this out. You need to see this. How come the media is not doing it? How come the media is not doing what I'm doing right now? How come they're not informing the people? Well, the first thing you need to know is every single TV station, every channel that you know of is owned by 6 companies. Now take a look at this. Now, these 6 companies own everything. They call them the Big 6. It's Viacom. You have Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, Comcast, who bought GE, Disney, Time Warner, and CBS. Now, as you can see, they own just about everything. Now, Clear Channel and Sirius owns all the radio stations. Warren Buffett and Disney and Time Warner owns all the magazines and newspapers. Now, these 10 companies own just about every single product you buy from the store. Everything. They own them all. And it's the same with cars, clothes, shoes. Everything is owned by a small group of people that's controlling the world. Now, how many people know what fascism is? Fascism is when corporations control government. Now, this is the symbol for fascism. Why is the symbol for fascism on the back of our dime? Now, fascist derives from faggot. A faggot is a bundle of sticks, and as you can see, it's a bundle of sticks there. Now, why would the symbol that stands for the government being controlled by corporations be on our money? And even more than that, why would this symbol be here in the Senate? Why would that symbol be there? Because corporations control government. And these people who own these corporations are running everything. And as long as they give you Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan and sports and Beyonce and Jay-Z and radio, all this popular culture, as long as they get you worried about stupid stuff, you're never going to figure it out. They're throwing it right in your face. We are a fascist country and we can be bought. It's right there. Why is it there? A lot of people saw that thing there. They don't even know what it means. They don't know what it stands for. It's been sitting there for years. So how come nobody has asked that question? Why is the symbol for fascism in the Senate? As long as you let these people keep scamming you, they're never going to stop. Now, the CEOs of all these companies are a part of the Illuminati. Now, you can sit there and you can think that this whole Illuminati, secret society, skull and bones thing is just some bullshit. It's just like some movie stuff. Now, and that's what movies are there for. They're there to desensitize you to the truth. That's why it doesn't bother you when you see somebody dead in the street that much, because TV has desensitized you, and that's the purpose of it. Now, do you really think that these news anchors are going to come out and tell you the truth when they know that the owners are somebody who can kill them? Now, it's a lot of news anchors who have been killed because of what they said.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
on.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret. Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code? I wish there were something secret I could manifest. 322, a secret number? There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it. And we'll be watching. Be safe on the campaign trail. John Kerry, thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back.
I'm Tom Brokaw, NBC News, and it is my sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, the moderator of Meet the Press and NBC's Washington bureau chief, collapsed and died early this afternoon while at work at the NBC News Bureau in Washington. Tim had just returned from a family trip to Italy with his wife, Maureen Orth, the writer, and his son, Luke. They were celebrating Luke's graduation from Boston College just this spring. Tim, of course, has been the host of Meet the Press longer than any other person in that long-running television broadcast. And he has been a very familiar face on this network and throughout the world of political journalism as one of the premier political analysts and journalists of his time.
And so what do we get now in Barack Obama? Well, I've got videos, by the way. This election, we're going to vet him. I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him from his college days to show you why racial division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008. The videos are going to come out. The narrative is going to come out that Barack Obama met a bunch of silver ponytails back in the 1980s, like Bill and Bernadine Dorn, who, equally radical, said one day, we're going to have the presidency, and the rest of us slept while they plotted and they plotted and they plotted, and they oversaw hundreds of millions of dollars in the Annenberg Challenge, and they had real money from real capitalists. Barack Obama is a radical. We should not be afraid to say that. And that is who's in the White House, And that's who's outside right now telling you you don't have a right to be here, and who would squelch your free speech just as easily they do at Harvard, Vassar, Yale, Wesleyan. They're a bunch of totalitarian freaks. They tried to defeat the Tea Party, and when they failed, they wanted their Tea Party. And what did they create? They created the Occupy movement. These are the same exact people that organized Camp Casey at Crawford. That was Occupy Crawford. These are the same exact people that went down the highway at the exact time at the end of the summer when Katrina happened. That was Occupy New Orleans. It's the same radicals. They've been in your life since Senator Obama became part of your vocabulary. They are at war with you. Take that what you will. And this is my thesis, that the anti-war movement was never about anti-war. It was a Saul Alinsky community organizing tool to get Barack Obama and the left elected. That the Republican Party and the conservative movement is not what ABC and CBS puts on the screen. They try to portray you in the worst possible light. And when I walk through CPAC, or I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
A few days ago, I made the commitment that I would get to the bottom of Andrew Breitbart's death. I have a personal investment in this investigation. I believe that were the same thing to happen to me and Andrew Breitbart was left alive or yet alive, that he would seek to find out if I had been whacked, the administration, the Obama administration, or any other governmental agency would have been involved in the removal of my presence from this earth. I've now, my second investigation on this matter, have discovered that WikiLeaks published an article that bin Laden's death or body was not buried at sea, and that the body was taken back to Dover Air Force Base on a plane that was guarded by the CIA and was examined, and there it was to be cremated. Now, Drudge reported that this week, and then they quickly withdrew the story, along with other major news agencies that was going with the WikiLeaks story, but for whatever reason, they withdrew it in midstream. Sources have been able to determine that the reason why Andrew Breitbart was killed was because he had discovered incontrovertible evidence that the Chinook helicopter that went down in Afghanistan in August was taken down by a suicide bomber, one of the 8 Afghans that was on that Chinook helicopter, and 22 of the members of the Navy SEAL Team 6, this very same team that was alleged to have captured and killed Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan, going back to April or May of 2011. This Navy SEAL team was killed. They were killed that they might remain silent about there was no raid, there was no Osama bin Laden body, and that it was all a hoax. Now, anybody who's been around the military for any length of time would know 22 Navy SEAL teams, 30 Americans all total, and 8 Afghanistan Taliban soldiers on a Chinook helicopter, and then they all go down in one fell swoop. Very, very suspicious. There was no Osama bin Laden killing. There was no Osama bin Laden capture. It was all a hoax, mainly to do 2 things. One, to camouflage and to quieting the questions about Barack Hussein Obama's eligibility and the birth certificate that he presented, that it was a forgery, and to change the views, change the direction, change the conversation in America. What more would change the conversation? What were the two biggest issues going on underground and above ground in America? Underground was the fact that Obama is not a U.S. citizen, that he is wholly ineligible. He is not constitutionally eligible, rather. Let me put it that way. Obama is not constitutionally eligible. That was conversation number one. Conversation number two that had faded was still major, was that Barack Hussein Obama now has killed and captured the most wanted man on the planet in Osama bin Laden. Two of the major conversations, and one canceled out the other. It was a very shrewd move by the Obama administration. There were two fakes presented to us in April. One was the fake birth certificate. The other was the fake death certificate of Osama bin Laden. Two major fakes that the world will not soon forget, and I will continue to uncover. The CIA is now headed by David Petraeus. He was promoted out of the field. Obama brought him out of the field because he knew that there was no raid at Abbottabad, that crashed helicopter was simply a staged helicopter crash. There was no capture. There was no killing of Osama bin Laden. There was no transfer to the U.S. Carl Vinson, and there was no burial at sea. Now, WikiLeaks leaked the story, and Drudge and other major news agencies carried it, including the Associated Press, but in the middle of the day, they retracted the story, saying there was not enough evidence. WikiLeaks had the evidence, and the evidence is still there. Breitbart was killed because he had the evidence before WikiLeaks. Not before WikiLeaks, but from WikiLeaks, before WikiLeaks leaked the information to the press. Indeed, WikiLeaks had this information prior to. They had leaked it to Breitbart. Breitbart was sitting on it. The CIA knew that Breitbart had it. They whacked him. WikiLeaks then released the information. They released it. Now, here's the scenario. Sean Hannity said that he was going to release the tapes that Breitbart spoke about at CPAC.
I've got videos, by the way. This election, we're going to vet him. I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him from his college days.
Which was nothing, just Obama's rowdy anarchist days at Harvard, but there was nothing to it. The release of that information by Sean Hannity was a fraud and an insult to the integrity of investigative journalism. Here's a scenario. Breitbart had received from WikiLeaks the information that there was no raid at Abbottabad, that Osama bin Laden was not killed, that General David Petraeus had been removed from his field command and kicked up to the level of CIA to keep him quiet about the fact that there was no raid, that the army that was not involved in moving from Afghanistan to Abbottabad, Pakistan. He was given a high-ranking position to keep him quiet. Leon Panetta, who was a CIA agent who knew there was also nothing, was kicked up to the Secretary of Defense. Breitbart knew this, and you can document it yourself. Just go back and check the records of the date that Chinook helicopter went down with 22 Navy SEALs on board. I mean, why would you put all that, your eggs in one basket? And that Chinook helicopter, the weaponry plan, the defense plan, the deployment plan of the Chinook is that they should fly in tandem, two of them. And that there's radar, there's air cover, there's all kinds. You don't shoot down a Chinook helicopter. You might shoot a Huey, but you don't shoot down a Chinook, and everybody knows that. My friend Captain Neil Turner suggested and intimated that very possibly on board that ship, Chinook, was a suicide bomber of the 8 Afghans of the Taliban military that brought that Chinook helicopter down. Now there is complete silence. The 22 Navy SEAL team operatives are dead, and dead men don't talk.
Now, if you think that those are coincidences, if you think that these people they died of natural causes, or heart attacks and stuff like that, if you think this was just an accident or things of that nature, then you are very naive. There is none as blind as he who will not see. And a lot of people don't want to see what's going on. A lot of people don't want to understand that this whole thing is controlled. I mean, we are under control. Now, you got these religious people talking about, oh, we're going to receive the mark of the beast and all this and that from the Bible. Now, you watched the first video, already proved the Bible is bullshit, but you are already marked.